Hey there, welcome to my front porch. I'm Daniel Norton, photographer here in New York. Happy Friday. Today I'm going to talk about inspiration. And I've talked about other things before, but I kind of want to talk about why I don't look at photography that much. I won't say I never look at photography, but I don't really look at photography. There's a few reasons for it, and I kind of got into a habit of it, partially because when I first started shooting, when I was a young man, I was a fashion photographer. And you might think, well, hold on, Daniel. I want to do fashion, and I look at all the fashion magazines to see what people are doing. You will learn that if you are indeed a fashion photographer, or that is where you want to pursue, the last thing you want to do is look at what's in the magazines. The magazines are shot months and months ahead of time. By the time they hit the stands, styles are changing, styles as far as shooting. Fashion photography is one of those things, and I say this all the time, that it is incredibly hard to teach because it's always changing. If I make a book right now showing you 10 fashion photography techniques, in 3 years, like those people will look at that and be like, oh, you're using a ring flash, whatever, Things do circle around and come back, of course. And there are fashion styles that kind of non-fashion people use that fall into that thing. That's a whole other video, right? The quasi-fashion commercial photographer. But what I'm talking about is actually true fashion. So what you want to do is break the trends. You want to do something that's unique. And also, you want your fashion photography is one of those areas where you are more or less allowed to do what you need to do to get the right shot. In other words, when you're shooting fashion photography, if the right look for that editorial or whatever is to shoot it on Instax film, that's the type of thing you can get away with a lot of times as a fashion photographer. You better pull it off, but you can do it, right? If you're going to shoot a commercial client and you go, you know what, I think we should do your annual report in Instax. I mean, that's going to be a hell of a sales pitch to make that happen, right? It's just not going to be the kind of thing that they're going to go for. So, wow, I really went off on a tangent here. That's unusual. But my point being is that we didn't look at other photography. We looked at like ideas of photography and concepts of photography. We looked at fine art photography. We looked at really old fashion photography, but never at the current stuff. And what it made me think of was the idea that oftentimes as creatives, photographers in particular, we can look at something and really enjoy it, but it might not be the thing that we create. So that is, you might love looking at black and white landscapes, but you might never shoot a landscape. That doesn't mean that you can't be inspired by it, and you can't take ideas from it, and you can't use it in your own work. There's multiple ways to be inspired. There's the way that you just see something, and it just makes you want to create, right? This happens a lot with, in the more abstract, with music. You're listening to some music, and it just pumps you up. Maybe you listen to it while you're setting up your gear before you shoot. There's nothing particularly about the music you're going to copy. You're a photographer, right? But it gets your blood going, gets you going. Maybe you go to a museum and you look at paintings, right? And you look at how the painters used light and texture and shape and form, and you incorporate that into your work. This is the kind of thing that we can do pretty easily, right? We can essentially look at various types of artwork and then emulate it. But even more specifically to photographers, we can look at photography and emulate it, right? The idea that we look at something and copy it is something that you do early on when you're trying to learn technique. But the idea that you look at something and become inspired by it is something that you do as your career progresses. You might look at an image that somebody made and really, really enjoy it for certain features in it, for a certain emotion that it brings out. But you might never, ever create an image like that. It wouldn't be the type of image that you'd create because you handed a camera, that's just not something that you would do. This happens to me all the time, and I learned this, when I was younger, because I would look at this certain type of photography that I really liked. It was like my favorite type. It was like kind of gritty and black and white, and although then I went through a gritty stage, but at the time I was shooting real clean beauty, stuff. I would never ever create these kind of gritty images. And if you handed me the camera, and even if I was looking directly at those images before I started, at the end of the shoot, I would have my clean, beautiful images because that was my style. My style wasn't the gritty thing, but that gritty stuff inspired me. It got me pumped up to shoot. It got me pumped up to create, even if in the end, I didn't create that thing. So I think when we're thinking about inspiration, when you're making your Pinterest boards or you're doing whatever you're doing, don't necessarily just take stuff that you want to do. Take stuff that when you look at it, it makes you go, I'm a photographer. I want to create. this is amazing. And I think you'll find that that sometimes that stuff can be even better to get you pumped up than oh, I'm going to copy this popular photographer because they're using gels or multiple exposure or they're doing whatever. Do what's in you, but be inspired by what's outside of you. So let me know in the comments below what inspires you. Do you guys look at photography and try to copy it? How do you guys operate when you're looking for inspiration? Is the first thing you do look at photography, or do you go somewhere else first? Let me know in the comments below. Also, ring the bell and subscribe if you haven't already. I think I did that backwards, but that's okay. And I'll see you next time.